Okay, my fellow nerds, now that we have spent some time in Spain, we are going to jaunt off to, okay, whoops, it's this way, I guess. This should have said Southern Africa and the Western Cape. I got excited. So we are going to Southern Africa to talk about Cape blends of the Western Cape. So first we're going to talk about Africa in general, and then the Western Cape, the red grapes of the Western Cape, some African wine laws, Cape blends in general, and then kind of a summary of what we've discussed because it might feel like a lot, and then a little preview of next time. I got this photo off of Unsplash from Pavel Chervinsky. Sorry if I'm messing up your name. You can hit up his Instagram using the link on the slide. So, Africa. The vast majority of Africa falls outside of the latitude bands used for growing wine, which you may recall are 30 to 50 north and 30 to 50 south. So, in fact, these are the, let's see, I think you can see my mouse. So this one up top is the 30 north, and this one down below is 30 south. So we are looking at the vast majority of the land is outside of the wine growing regions. South Africa, which you saw below the 30 South line, is Africa's largest wine producer and in fact 9th in the world, which is really cool. Actually, I think we're going to get to some maps. Okay, so here is South Africa. It's this whole kind of line that goes up like this and over here, and it does in fact have two countries inside of it. So very interesting geography. And then we'll talk about, so Aldo Somm in the book Wine Simple, which I think I showed in the last video, said, synonymous with mass-produced Chenin Blanc, South Africa is also bottling wines with character and soul. And I love that. Like, that's so wonderful because South Africa is making great work on the wine scene. Now, the Western Cape, you can see, is this little bit down here. If my mouse isn't showing on the screen, it's outlined in red, and it's kind of a more ivory color than gray. The Western Cape is wild because it is approximately like 1/5 the size of France, or if you are a United States person, it's about the size of Louisiana. We'll zoom in a little further. So here you can see Cape Town is over on the coast underneath the Stellenbosch, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to zoom in again. I think this is as zoomed in as we get. So taking up pretty much the entire slide, all of this is the Western Cape. And then, because I just like to show you the topography, you can see here, it's kind of like greener on the coast and then a little bit browner as we get into it. And you can see some changes in the altitude and all of that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the weather. Oh, and there, this line is the 30 South line. So you can see all of the Western Cape falls just right below 30 South. So we are pushing the limits of the wine growing region, but we are within them. Okay, so given the latitude that we just talked about, the boundaries are approximately 32 south and 35 south for the entire Western Cape. So it would be so easy to assume, well, this is a hot climate, but you saw the green. So there's something called the Benguela Current that brings cooler temperatures up from the Antarctic. So if, again, hopefully my mouse is showing, so we've got the Antarctic continental shelf down here. The cool air gets brought up all along the coast by the Benguela Current, bringing that temperature down. Now, what about as we get further inland? Great. There's also something called the Cape Doctor. And now I know this graphic at first might look a little strange, but you can see here, this white line is the outline of the tip of Africa. And you can see like Cape Town's right here, Port Elizabeth is over here. So if you look at where these winds, the Cape Doctor winds are coming, they're coming again out of Antarctica, and then they actually get pushed up and inland. So rather than cooling the coast, they actually bring the cool air inland, keeping even more of the Western Cape in a more temperate, a little bit better for growing grapes, not too hot. And you see in this one, it says 32 km/h winds. So for my Royal Imperial measurements, that's about 20 miles per hour. Then, all right, so these red grapes that we are able to grow thanks to the Cape Doctor and the Benguela Current. So we've got Cab Sauv, that is hands down the most widely planted red or black grape for Honestly, I think all of South Africa, but definitely for the Western Cape. And then, of course, its brother Merlot. So full-bodied, plum-forward expressions are coming from this area. And you might think, is there Cab Franc? There is. I just don't think that there's really enough of it grown to merit it getting its own section on this slide. There's not going to be, from what I have gathered, bottles of Cab Franc. It will always be blended in almost like a Bordeaux blend. Then, of course, we have Syrah, which is nice because it can be grown in the hot climates, giving it like a very full-bodied, high-alcohol, fruit-forward, or you can grow it in the cool climates. You get a little bit more of that peppery expression, a little bit more acid, and a little bit lighter. Not light, just lighter. Pinot Noir can really only be grown in those coolest coastal areas, so it thrives thanks to those weather influences we discussed. And in South Africa, they do often use oak aging. And then we'll talk about Pinotage. So Pinotage, there we go. Pinotage is a crossing, not a hybrid, a crossing of Pinot Noir and Cinsault developed in South Africa in 1925. So super, super cool and critical to Cape blends. We're getting there. So this is Pinotage. It was thought that it would take on more of the Pinot Noir characteristics, and I believe it took on more of the Cinsault characteristics. So it wasn't exactly what they wanted, but I got this cute graphic off of Cape of Good Wine, and it talks about kind of, you got these lobed leaves, you have small to medium berries, you've got, it's like an early ripening grape, and then they talk about all the flavors, which I thought was really cool. You got plum, blackberry, cherries, smoke. I have no idea what this is. I have had rooibos tea, green peppers, earth, leather, tar, good stuff. And then occasionally, so they say banana, which would tell me maybe there was some semi-carbonic or carbonic maceration. To me, that's more of a vinification than a viticulture thing. And then the meaty chocolate coffee, that's also going to come maybe from the oak aging. And then Brave New World Wine had this incredible picture over here that talks about the growth stages. So you can see here, we're just starting out, we're getting to get some of the berries here. This stage where you have kind of the color change, that's called veraison. And then finally we have ripe grapes. And then over here, it even shows the leaves as they develop through the growing season, and dissections of the grapes, which I thought was really neat, because sometimes we don't realize like how much of a pulp to pip ratio there might be happening in these grapes. So really interesting graphics, just nerd out a little bit about these grapes. And now we'll talk about, I can put this kind of out of order. We're getting more to the Cape blends. So African wine law, you have wine of origin, the WO, and that is a geographical, no, I'm sorry, looking at this triangle, it goes from largest to smallest. So we've seen this in a few other countries, but in Africa specifically, you have a geographical unit. And this allows for a lot of blending across regions and districts. The Western Cape is a geographical unit. Then Swartland, which a lot of people have heard of, I think, for African wines, that is a region within the Western Cape. And I probably should have had a map, but I don't. I'll try to get one maybe for our next journey to Africa. So within the Western Cape, I don't know which way it would be to you. You also have Swartland, which is on the coast. Then Stellenbosch is a district within the coastal region. So right now we've got geographical unit to region to district. And then within the districts, you have ward. So one of the most notable wards in South Africa is Hemel en Aarde, which literally means heaven on earth, and that is in the Walker Bay district. So hopefully those examples help you understand how the areas just kind of nest within each other and get smaller and smaller. Not a WO, but also a labelable option. That's a weird labelable. You have estate wines. So estate wines come from, no surprise, a single estate. And from what I have read of the laws, the estate grows, processes, and bottles the grapes, all on that estate. I've read some confusing information about the bottling, but it seems like most commonly, maybe they just do it. These estates will keep the whole wine process on their own estate. Now, top producers who make these estate wines may also produce wine of origin wines with using either the district or the region. I would assume that the estate wines are their top quality wines, and then they kind of blend the rest of what's left over, because we see that in a lot of other countries. So that's the African wine law. I don't remember the trick I used to remember it, but it was amusing at the time. Anyway, All right, so a Cape blend. What is a Cape blend? So a few different reference points here. I went to Capreo's wine glossary, very good if you're just trying to come up with some wine terms. And they have a Cape blend is a term used since the turn of the millennium. And it's true, it was about 2000 or 2001 when these first came on the scene for a cuvee or a blend from the Cape winelands in the South Africa. And it's kind of Africa's answer to Bordeaux blends, which you might have guessed when we were talking about what the red grapes are. It was first created with Cab Sauv, Merlot, and then Pinotage. Now, moving on to Wine Spectator, who released an article called South Africa Winemakers Debut Cape Blend Designation, which was a great article, and I think I'll have it linked in the video description. Seymour Pritchard, owner of Clos Malvern Winery, said, "We make excellent Bordeaux style and even Australian-inspired red wines, but by using Pinotage judiciously, we are adding a different special dimension." And that's really important because, you can make Bordeaux blends pretty much anywhere you can grow Bordeaux grapes, but the wine market is saturated with Bordeaux and also Bordeaux blends. So what makes this special? Like, what's going to make South Africa stand out? Well, they're the ones who came up with this grape, so why not use it? And then Mike Ratcliffe, director of Warwick Estate, points out that it's largely been decided by the winemakers. How much of the Pinotage will go in? What will be the blending? What will be the oak aging? And that makes sense. And he says the formula has been almost completely winemaker driven up to now. But that brings us to the question of, are there any legal indications of what a Cape blend is? Like, how much Pinotage? And that's kind of where this next section, also from the Wine Spectator article. So people who are really big supporters of the Cape blend and making it a formalized kind of thing are working with the South Africa Wine and Spirits Board about establishing those restrictions. So maybe like a minimum of 20% Pinotage. And then I've done a lot of reading since. So that article came out in 2013, I believe. And I have done a lot of reading and haven't seen anything official, but most people are saying 60 or 70% as the max for the Pinotage. And then sort of what else you would blend in would be up to you as the winemaker, but most likely it will be Cab Sauv and Merlot. So that's our Cape blends. Big region, you can get your grapes from anywhere, but what are the stipulations on how much of that special South African Pinotage grape is in that blend? That's pretty much it. I don't even know how long this is at this point. So wrap up, Cape blends are generally fruit-forward blends made with Pinotage and Bordeaux grapes. They're often, I said fruit-forward again, fairly tasty and rather inexpensive. The one that I have here, see if I can figure out this green screen, I think this was like $7. So let's do our tasting. Now, I'm not pouring. I already had this. This is where the green screen gets a little weird. I already had this open because when I first opened it, it smelled like asphalt. And I was like, all right, this needs some time to breathe. So let's try it now. Okay, I don't get banana, but I do get bubblegum, which is usually a semi-carbonic maceration or a full carbonic note. Cherry, plum. I'm still getting a little bit of asphalt, gravel, minerality to it. I mean, this is not a complex wine. I can't remember if I looked up how much of each grape. I didn't look up the grapes. Well, if I look them up afterwards and I put them in the description, you'll know. But right now I have no idea. I just know there's probably Pinotage in this. Wow, much fruitier on the palate. A lot less of that minerality to it, but it gives it a nice kick, a nice little boost. This is really good. It's got a little bit of a Welch's grape juice finish to it, but honestly, you could just sip this bottle and I don't think you would be too sad. They suggest to pair it with beef venison pasta, matured cheeses, and then of course they're good marketers. It says wonderful to be sipped on its own. I don't disagree, and I guess I'll have to go try it with some things to know if the rest of the recommendations are right. I didn't fill in next time, and I'm not sure why. We are going to Portugal, which is very exciting. We'll talk about some not port. So there's your little teaser. And in the meantime, oh, this picture Oh, it's not going away now. This picture came, well, wherever this picture came from, it's credited over there. And they had, yeah, westerncape.gov.za, and I think they were the ones who had some information on how to tour the Western Cape based on where you want to go for your wineries. So check out that website, pretty cool. And then of course, I need to say thank you to all of the places that I got pictures or information from. They're listed here, including this beautiful sunset photograph, which came from Elijah Hewitt, who you can go to his Instagram and check out that stuff. I probably missed some credits, so if I did, I'm so sorry. Let me know. I will definitely throw it into the video description. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for Portugal.